Welcome, everyone, to the QSR Staffing Solutions during the labor shortage or labor crisis webinar. Brought to you in association with QSR Magazine, myself here at Sprockets, and one of our panelists today at Paradox. Hopefully, throughout our time together, we'll be able to give you some insights from our customer base that are QSR operators that are in the middle of the same scenario and how they've been tackling things and reducing any sort of dependency that they have on sourcing right now or the struggles of the labor shortage. Getting right into it, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit more, as well as one of our panelists today, Tori. My name is Chad Troutman. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Sprockets, and I have grown up in the food service industry. We had an A&W restaurant when I was a teenager and catering companies, and was a GM at Papa John's. So I am very, very familiar from a family aspect in the space, and we'll call upon some of that experience as we talk through some solutions that I think are tried and true things to do when facing any sort of need to stabilize your staffing levels in a particular unit. And then Tori is with us from Paradox, another great food service solution and somebody that's been in food service for a while herself. So I'd love for her to introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Chad. Yes, my name is Tori McGlynn. I head up the restaurant space here at Paradox, and excited to be able to meet with you all today. We know these are some very challenging times that we're faced with when it comes to hiring, and excited to be able to share a little bit of our knowledge. You know, I work with restaurant groups day in and day out, and so, you know, getting to hear firsthand what you all are experiencing right now and coming up with creative solutions on how to handle it. So excited to be here and be a part of this.
Absolutely. Well, jumping right into the problem itself, by the numbers, there are some new challenges that we're facing. Turnover and sourcing have always been something that the food service industry has been fixated on year over year, trying to keep things in a controlled fashion so that we don't have too much drag on our particular units. But in particular, right now, we're looking at 10.8% of hospitality unemployment, with 30% of the workers during this particular time period moving on to new industries. So, not coming back to us. So we've got a lot of workers to replace. And right now, the estimate is the deficit here is around 3.4 million individuals or hourly workers is the deficit across the entire industry. So a little, I wouldn't say entirely unprecedented, but for our generation or for the last few decades, this is a unique moment in time that requires some unique solutions or some unique perspectives there. So kind of wanted to start us off with how obviously important it is by the numbers to make sure that we're retaining quality employees right now, but also sourcing quality employees. So in today's webinar, we are going to talk about some solutions that we either see on the horizon, see our users taking advantage of. And the first one out of the gates here is just to say, honestly, and it's nothing that any of our businesses are doing, this is something that state-by-state folks are doing, and that is actually bringing in some cash bonuses to get people back to work, kind of the return of the workforce. So that's why we say help is on the way. I know there's already 16 plus states that have reduced or ended some of the COVID level funding that was going on towards unemployment, and have gone as far as to help incentivize those that were previously displaced to rejoin the workforce. When looking at this area, there's not a ton that is in the control of the individual operator. This is, again, something state, something federal. Of course, the associations that we're with are lobbying on our behalf to try to help us out with this particular time period. But what I'd say I don't see all of our users on when we first meet them is them being on unemployment websites within their state. It's very shocked how often a free resource like that is underutilized, and do encourage, everybody thinks about the job board like, let's go to Indeed because it's the big one in the room, but I'd say a great way to take advantage right now of the fact that states are loosening up on how they're viewing unemployment is to still go to the unemployment website. They are part of that process, needing to apply for jobs through that site to continue to get those funds. So again, highly encourage that. I don't see all of our users doing it or taking advantage of that free resource. So that's a simple thing that you can be doing now. Tori, I'm not sure if you've seen anything from your user base or your client base on this either.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what you just shared, that, not a lot of the clients that we work with are utilizing some of those free resources. And, right now we'll get candidates wherever we can. It's a really unique time because, like we looked at on the other side, there's candidates that have traditionally been in the restaurant or hospitality space that are now venturing into other markets. So we're no longer just competing with our fellow restaurants. We're competing against everyone right now. And so taking advantage of any resource that you have is really important right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. And going back to that stat that so many people have moved on to a different industry. So we've got folks to replace, and that's why we talk to a lot of our clients about how they focus on hiring the Gen Zers. This is the next workforce up, the next generation coming up, and they don't have a lot of previous experience, of course. They, coming out of high school, things of that nature. So one of the things, and this is, I use this to highlight something that I believe is important, is far too often do I come across operators that get really hung up on previous food service experience. We are going to have to loosen up our viewpoint there because, again, to replace 30% of the workforce, you are going to have folks that are coming from maybe previously were in manufacturing, some of their hourly role, they were in childcare, whatever the case may be, and be able to see who's going to be great for your staff without them having any previous industry experience. Gen Z falls right into that same category. What you're looking for is, how do I hire people that are coachable, that have the right skill set, have the right traits to be in our particular restaurant? And the way to go after these individuals, Gen Z is going to be different than what a lot of our operators have previously hired. When I say that, I mean how they like to be communicated with, what resonates with them, where are they going for jobs, that sort of thing. And we have users that have gone as far as to, B2B businesses always find their way onto social media, where a lot of folks talk to me about is Facebook. I assure you, your Gen Zers are no longer on Facebook. So moving on to things like Instagram, TikTok, things like that. This is what I always encourage our clients here is, have a referral system. Once you have a Gen Zer on your staff, then having a referral system for them to where that they can send out messages, encourage people in their network to apply, and have a little referral program for them every time somebody actually comes in, applies, and signs up, is the way to go about this. They are a very social and online social generation, so I'd use that to my advantage. But just know that Facebook jobs is no longer the be-all, end-all. That's not for the Gen Z generation. Tori, anything on that side that you've seen with a focus on hiring Gen Z that would be a helpful solution to some of the operators here with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we've seen is there is actually a study on this. I promise I'm not just making this stat up, that Gen Z has an 8-second attention span, which isn't surprising when we're talking about the generation of TikTok. And all that means is that we have to be able to capture candidates and engage them quickly and easily. So traditional forms of, formalized applications, something that would take them typically 30 minutes to fill out for a job, we lost them at the 8-second mark. So we have to find creative ways to engage these candidates quickly. And they're also the generation of instant gratification, for better or worse. When they do something, they're looking for an immediate response from it. And so when we're talking about hiring for Gen Z, we need, the application process that the candidate goes through to be indicative of that, and to have it be quick, easy, and instant gratification at the end for them, so that we make sure that we're engaging them and they're not just dropping off and going somewhere else.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you said that. I know that with Paradox, y'all have introduced a great methodology for getting applicants without it being like, I remember having to sit at a booth, pen and piece of paper, filling out an application with like, here's my 5 years worth of previous experience that I don't have because I'm a kid, sort of thing. And God forbid if you go into one of the systems that just you submit your application and makes you redo it in a different format. Like that, nobody's going to hang on to that kind of stuff. And that's why in job descriptions, when you guys, this is another area of focus right now, where when I see the folks in our client base that aren't struggling or don't have the same dependency on sourcing and they have stable staffing levels, on the front end, they're writing really good job descriptions. And one of the things that they're borrowing from is, and I'd say to borrow from this is, look at on campus, like college recruiting, job posts for things like the Red Bull representative that's going around and passing out samples around campus. These are energetic, fun, and brief job descriptions. They're really to the point, and they're not overblown. Again, as Tori said, 8-second time spans. It's hitting the highlights. They're formatted in a way to where it brings up the information at the top. So many times do I see job descriptions where it's like talking about how, talking about the fact that this particular restaurant's been in town for 75 years. I'm not saying that that's not important. I'm just saying that might be something that you put towards the bottom, not towards the top. So check out other job descriptions. Definitely do some competitive analysis in your area. And then the last thing with these exceptional sort of job descriptions is I definitely advise folks to drop, and I'll get back into this in a little bit, but we have an interview session from 2 to 4 every Wednesday. In the instant gratification culture that Tori was just talking about, most applicants are not going to wait until next week to be a part of a group interview. They will likely have already found something well before then. So I dropped that from the job description.
Absolutely. And I think too, kind of looping it back to the Gen Z mindset, like this generation wants to be connected, and there's kind of this balance. We don't need to write such a formal job description. We're not asking, for them to go build rocket ships. It doesn't need to be something super formalized, but this is still a generation of people that want to feel connected to the work that they're doing. And now more than ever, I think your job descriptions are a great way for you to call out what makes you different and unique, and why should a candidate come work for you than the next quick service restaurant down the street. Like, they know what they're going to be doing at every job. It's not that different. But what makes it different is you and your organization, and having those call outs in the job description for why they should work for you are really a big difference maker too.
Absolutely. And everybody has, every franchisee out there, every business out there, every operator has a unique story, has something that makes them special about their staffing, even communicating your leadership style. You're spot on. That's exactly what needs to be highlighted, as well as, of course, competitive pay and benefits. This is not something that everybody can be in this arms race that seems to be going on, and there definitely seems to be a bit of a an arms race going on between certain brands of like, okay, we're at 15, let's go to 16, 17, $18 an hour sort of thing, trying to attract candidates. And yes, this is a coin-operated solution. When you offer, and there have been studies on this, when you offer competitive pay in the QSR space, and I know it's a McDonald's study that I really wish I could pull top of mind all of a sudden, it is something that you will see not only increased applicant flow, but also retention. It's not the job that's the problem in certain instances for folks. It's that there's a better opportunity somewhere else in terms of compensation. So this one's pretty cut and dry for me, but Tori, I'm not sure if you've got any extra things to add to the incentives and the competitive pay and benefits.
No, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's it's a solution that I think still has to be paired with everything else because, again, it is an arms race. It's like when we started opening up restaurants on Sunday. One person did it, then everybody else did. So it only gives you an advantage for so long. The other things that we're talking about are more long-standing solutions as well. The last here that is paramount to success, and I know Paradox does a really great job with this, and a lot of operators and hiring managers don't. And why I say this is they're not in the best position to reply to applicants quickly. Software is, but people aren't, and I'll give you an example. And I'll first start off with why is applicant response time so crucial? People are shopping for a job. We know, Indeed has told us that a QSR applicant applies for 6 jobs in 7 minutes. There is no brand loyalty going on in that. What that is this is the commuting radius that I'm willing to go drive to an hourly job in. And we know from our internal metrics, the first person to reply to that candidate is exponentially more likely to get an accepted or like give them an offer and have it accepted, as opposed to, and I'll harken back to a little earlier, the group that says, hey, we do interviews every Wednesday from 2 to 4. See you then. They're not gonna wait around. So they're looking for that instant gratification. They're looking for that moment where you let them know you're interested in them. So, and that's a hard thing for GMs and hiring managers to do when they're on the floor. If I'm in the middle of making a pizza, I don't know when an applicant came in. I don't know that they applied just then. So I can't do anything with it, as opposed to maybe somebody else down the street that's able to instantly see that and have an instant automated response to it. So if you're using a job board that doesn't have automated responses to applicants, that's not good. And if you don't have a mechanism to let your hiring managers know immediately when a good candidate's come in, it is going to be holding you back right now because they're looking for that gratification and they're shopping for a job. So getting to them first really does matter.
Yeah.
Tori,
I was going to say, I have to jump in here because this is like, this hits me in the heart. This is my full passion. And what I do because, we cannot ask your managers to take on one more thing. Your managers are the ones that right now and through this entire crisis that we've been in, through this whole pandemic, your managers have been the ones that have been keeping the ship steady, keeping everything afloat, and they're wearing 50 different hats in a day. And one thing that is so unique about the QSR space is that when a manager needs to hire the most is when they have the least amount of time to do it because they're covering shifts, they're working with customers, they're focused on operations, and it's so unrealistic to expect them to be sitting at a computer in the back office waiting to get an alert that a candidate has come in and applied. And like Chad mentioned, we know that the first person to get to that candidate is oftentimes the one that is able to actually hire them and the first one to make them an offer. And so right now more than ever, we need to support our managers. We need to give them tools to be able to put yourselves in the best position to be contacting those candidates first and not adding it, as work on their plate because they have enough going on. So, yes, this pulls at my heartstrings because, I have so much empathy for what managers are going through on a daily basis right now, and anything we can do to help support them, we want to do.
Absolutely. And that's where we can make a segue into what is the shameless plug portion of the webinar. And that is, we know all these things and we found these solutions for our clients because this is what we do day in and day out. And there are two different products represented here today that help out tremendously with a lot of the solutions that we've already presented to you. One is Sprockets here. And this is when you have people coming into your business that don't have previous experience or haven't been in food service before, how do you know whether or not they're going to work out well? And honestly, any applicant that comes in, how do you know they're going to work out well? For us and what our users have found, and one of the things that's dramatically helped increase their employee retention is hiring more people like their top performers. Top crew members. This system is a matching system. As applicants come in, we are matching them up against the shared characteristics of your top performing crew members across a brand, across an entire franchise group, or just a singular location. And when we hire more people like our very best, we see retention dramatically go down and our dependency on sourcing dramatically go down. So our clients that were with us before honestly, this year have not had any struggles with the current labor shortage because they were focused on both sides of the equation, sourcing and retention. This tool is very helpful for that and many other things, but at the end of the day, it's doing what I always wanted as a GM. I always had somebody on my crew that if I could literally clone them, I would. That's what we're doing over here without actually any sci-fi level cloning going on. Now with Paradox, I'd love to hear Tori tell you a little bit more about how they help in the hiring process.
Yeah, absolutely. We really focus on the front end of that process, and part of how we pair so well with Sprockets is that we can focus on screening the candidates and making sure that they're qualified for the role that they're applying to, and we can automatically schedule them for an interview without having any manager involvement. So a candidate can get screened for a job, scheduled for an interview in under 90 seconds, and your manager hasn't even had to do a single thing. Really, your manager doesn't have to do anything until that candidate walks through the door for the interview. And then with Sprockets, we can make sure that the candidate that's walking through the door is actually one that aligns with the profile that you're looking to hire for. So helping to make sure that you're always putting your best foot forward in any candidate that is engaging with your brand, that you're the first company to reach out to them and to get them scheduled for an interview, and taking what is a hyper-competitive hiring market right now, and by giving the candidate that instant gratification of, hey, you just had a 90-second text conversation with our recruiting assistant, Olivia, who screened you and scheduled you for this interview, we're able to make sure that any qualified candidate is hearing from you right away and not putting that workload on your managers. And it's also just about, staying competitive in the market. If your competition is doing this and, a restaurant 2 miles down the street from you is doing this, and they're automatically scheduling a candidate right at that initial engagement because they meet the qualifications, and, it's taken your managers even just a few hours to get back to that candidate, and then the hours spent going back and forth with the candidate trying to get them scheduled for an interview is not beneficial time for your managers. Think of all of the other things they could be doing with that time that they're currently spending just trying to track down candidates to schedule them for an interview. So, we support over 18,000, actually close to 20,000 restaurant locations now, and love that we're able to essentially put a recruiter in every single restaurant location when normally that's not something that you can actually do.
And so that's great stuff. Like this is the product or the series of products that would have made my life easier, and as opposed to, not only having to watch somebody fill out a paper application in a booth, but then have that person take forever to do the interview process and the application process and then not work out, like leave in their first shift.
Yeah.
So between these two products, your hiring managers won't feel the pain around hiring, the scheduling, the application flow, all of that kind of stuff, nor the pain of going through the whole process and just to have that person immediately turn around and leave or cause a customer service issue. So with these combined, you're controlling your applicant flow and your retention and balancing out that equation of hiring so that you have stable staffing levels that you can just bank on in that unit moving forward. So if you are ever interested in learning more, of course, about either one of these products, we have included our contact information here for the final screen. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. We'd love to see how we could work together. But hopefully some of the solutions that we gave today that can be implemented without our products are helpful for you. And, at the end of the day, we definitely want to make sure the industry is taken care of in any way that we can. So hope to hear from you. But for today, I really do appreciate your time. And Tori, I do appreciate all of your insight and time as well.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Everybody take care.